address my first question to you. The primary storyline on the credit crunch has focused on major financial institutions and Wall Street. However, many have argued that these credit issues is creating even more daunting problems for businesses on Main Street. As a small business owner, what have you seen in terms of accessible and affordable credit over the last 12 months?
Currently, banks seem to be less interested in our business. We've had numerous people. Like you, we were looking at moving into one bigger facility a year ago because our facilities were full. Multiple banks looked at financing it for us. Today, that most of them want to walk, and a lot of them just want to walk away from automotive. So we're getting new lenders in the market that don't understand our needs. They're also question. Is it on? Yeah. They also question the asset values. They're re-looking at our asset values to see if we can borrow money or not against them in the future. And they also seem to have to go up higher in their chain of command to get decisions made, which slows down the process.
Mr. Ramieri, Mr. Franke, you testified that Remeyer's longtime lender essentially told you to go elsewhere for finance when times were tough. Can you talk to us about the struggles you faced in identifying alternative sources of credit for your company?
We tried numerous sources, I guess first, second, and third tier lending, and we decided against third tier lending, and we really couldn't find first or second tier lending. There were no banks that were interested.
Can you talk to us as to the primary reasons why those financial institutions did not offer financing to you?
We were on a pretty good cash burn. We lost significant money in 2007 and continued that into 2008. That was the primary reason.
Mr. Brown, you discussed that agriculture is the economic foundation for thousands of Main Street across the country. Do you feel that the struggles facing rural America have been largely ignored in this recovery process?
Yes, we do, Madam Chairwoman, excuse me. The items I identified earlier, which are foundational health care costs, have continued to escalate at an unacceptable rate. Usually, if you think of a farmer, it's a farmer and his family, and he has to buy his or her own health care. Secondly, agriculture historically has fully depended upon availability of credit to farm. Farming is a very high-risk operation. The vagaries of weather, pestilence, disease, etc. And it requires significant money for feed, fertilizer, fuel at this time of the year for the spring plant. Likewise, it's not unusual for a 3,000-acre corn farmer to have to buy 10,000 gallons of diesel fuel to run his or her combine in the fall. None of these, to the best of my knowledge, have been addressed in the economic programs discussed. I think rural lenders are attempting to do a very good job. I do not find fault with them, other than when you get on the downside of the slope and your financial ratios start to slide, when you need the help the most is rarely when you get it.
Ms. Dorfman, thank you. Mr. Brown, every day we hear stories, anecdotal stories in the papers, on TV, about small businesses complaining the fact that about the credit crunch, that they are not able to access affordable capital, credit lines of credit. And the SBA and their business loan programs are there, and yet you think that this is a time for those programs to be basically used. And what we hear is that the lending volume for SBA loan programs has been declining. Based on what you hear from your members, do you believe that this is an accurate claim, that businesses simply are not seeking loans and capital during this economic downturn?
I do not. We have surveyed several hundred members who have been looking for ways to access credit, and some of them have very good credit and have been paying on time, have had lines of credit, and they have been cut. When you take a look at the SBA loans, some of the issues that we hear are that the fees on both sides, the bank sides and the small business sides, are so enormous that it really is challenging to get an SBA loan just from that alone. We also see that the banks are not really, as you mentioned, being friendly to folks who have been with them for years and years and years. When we hear this bailout package, money goes to the banks, but where does it go then? It certainly has not gone down to the small business owner to access capital. The capital has, and how they've are working, they've actually tightened the ability to get the loans and the capital that they need for small businesses.
Mr. Wilson, during this recent downturn, we have seen steep declines in SBA lending year after year. And our hope was that these programs will do just the opposite and kick in when conventional lending pulled back. So why are we not seeing this? What do you think is the primary reasons for this steep decline in SBA lending programs?
I think it has a lot to do with the application. Excuse me. I think it has a lot to do with the application process.
Mm-hmm.
I believe also that the costs have risen to the point where small businesses are concerned about making an application, maybe being denied, but having a lot of expense involved. Banks are concerned because of the process. So as I stated in my testimony, I think there are some things that could be done with the SBA program, including raising the limit on guarantees so that more communities and more businesses would be touched by the SBA. And you're absolutely right. This is exactly the time when we need SBA to step forward and to take a larger role in funding small businesses.
So you feel that the cost is of the loans, that if the government provides a higher loan guarantee, that it will incentivize for financial institutions to make those loans?
That is correct.
Thank you. I recognize Mr. Chabot.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Wilson, I'll begin with you if I can. Relative to the $700 billion, which then went up to $850 billion bailout or rescue plan, or whatever terminology one wants to use, there's apparently been a number of businesses and banks in particular that are thinking about or trying to use a fairly significant portion of that money to purchase other institutions. What are your thoughts about that, and how helpful is that, and how does that affect banks like your own?
Let's go back to the original bill that was passed. Certainly a bank like ours was very conflicted as to whether to support or not support that kind of action. You know, there's a big difference between the regulated sector of the financial services industry and the non-regulated sector. As a matter of fact, I've always learned that to solve a problem, you have to understand to be able to define the problem. And certainly one of the problems is the definition of the word bank. Regulated, non-regulated, all called banks. Wall Street, Main Street, investment banks, and commercial banks, all called banks. So it's difficult to understand